They threw her a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. The blonde in the red dress smiled like she'd won the lottery. They called her Mrs. Wellington. And I just stood there in the back, watching my husband's mistress accept an award meant for me. But baby, they had no idea who I really was. Before we get into this story, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you're not going to believe how this ends. Trust me, you'll want to see the receipts. Now, let me tell you how I made an entire room full of millionaires apologize to my face. My name is Dr. Brianna Clark Wellington, and 8 years ago I married a man who promised to build an empire with me, not for me, with me. Christopher Wellington was a pharmaceutical sales manager when we met, charming and ambitious, but barely making six figures. I was finishing my doctorate in molecular biology, working on something that would eventually change cancer treatment forever. We fell in love over late-night takeout and shared dreams. He saw my potential, or at least that's what I thought. We got married in a small ceremony, just us and a few close friends. No big wedding. We were saving money, pouring everything into my research. I was developing a targeted drug delivery system that could attack cancer cells without destroying healthy tissue, the kind of breakthrough that saves lives and makes billions. Christopher handled the business side while I worked in our garage-turned-lab. He was good at talking to investors, schmoozing at dinners, making connections. I was good at the science. We were supposed to be a team. But here's the thing about building something from nothing. You better protect yourself. My grandmother used to tell me, "Baby girl, love is beautiful, but paperwork is forever." So before we started the company, I made sure every patent, every formula, every piece of intellectual property was in my name. Christopher signed the papers without much fuss. He said he trusted me. He said we were partners. Looking back now, I think he just didn't believe I'd actually succeed. 5 years into our marriage, Wellington Pharmaceuticals was worth $50 million. My drug had passed its first clinical trials. Investors were circling Christopher, convinced me to let him be the public face of the company. "You're too valuable in the lab," he'd say. "Let me handle the press, the galas, the networking. You just keep doing what you do best." And fool that I was, I believed him. I thought he was protecting me from distractions. I thought he was being a supportive husband. Year 6, I noticed the distance growing. He stopped asking about my work. He stayed out later and later, always with business dinners or investor meetings. When I asked to join him, he'd say I wouldn't enjoy it, that it was just boring schmoozing. He said I should focus on getting our drug through phase 3 trials. Red flags were everywhere, but I was so buried in my work, so close to the finish line, that I ignored them. Year 7, a colleague of mine, Dr. Harold Bennett, pulled me aside at a medical conference. He looked uncomfortable, kept adjusting his glasses. "Brianna," he said, "I met your husband last month at a pharmaceutical summit in Boston. He was with a woman, a blonde woman. He introduced her as his wife." I felt my stomach drop. Harold showed me a photo from the event's website. There was Christopher in a tuxedo, his arm around a woman in a sparkling silver dress. The caption read, "Christopher Wellington and wife Ashley at the annual Pharma Innovation Summit." I didn't confront him right away. That's not how you play chess, and baby, I was about to play the game of my life. Instead, I called my lawyer, Diane Richardson. Diane was a sister who didn't play games. She'd helped me set up all my patents and contracts from the beginning. "Don't say a word to him yet," she advised. "We need evidence. We need documentation. We need to know exactly what he's planning." For 3 months, I became a detective in my own marriage. I recovered deleted emails from our shared computer. I found flight receipts to romantic getaways I was never invited to. I discovered that Christopher had been telling business partners I was semi-retired and focusing on personal projects. He'd been positioning Ashley as his partner in every way that mattered. She was at investor dinners, charity events, pharmaceutical conferences. She was playing the role of Mrs. Wellington while I was locked away in a lab, creating the very innovations he was taking credit for. The worst part? Ashley wasn't even in pharmaceuticals. She was a former beauty pageant contestant turned lifestyle influencer. She knew nothing about molecular biology or drug development, but she knew how to smile for cameras and wear designer dresses. And apparently, that was enough for Christopher's new image. Then came the bombshell. Christopher came home one evening with a bottle of expensive wine and a folder of papers. "Baby," he said, using that smooth voice that once made me weak. "The company is restructuring. Our lawyers say we need to update some paperwork for tax purposes. Just need your signature on a few documents." I flipped through the papers while he poured the wine. Buried in legal jargon was a clause that would transfer all my patents to joint ownership and make Christopher the primary decision-maker for all company operations. I would become an employee of my own creation. I looked up at him, and I swear I saw it in his eyes. He thought I was stupid. He thought I'd just sign away everything I'd built because he asked nicely, "I need to have my lawyer review this," I said calmly. His jaw tightened just slightly. "It's just a formality, Brianna. Don't you trust me?" That's when I knew for certain. When someone asks you to trust them instead of reading the contract, run. "Of course I trust you," I lied, smiling. "But Diane always reviews everything. You know how thorough she is. Give me a week." He didn't like it, but he couldn't push too hard without showing his hand. "Fine," he said, "but we need this done soon. The board is waiting." The board. The board that I had personally selected and assembled. The board that existed because of my innovations. Yeah, I bet they were waiting. That night, after Christopher fell asleep, I made copies of everything. Every patent, every contract, every email, every photo of him with Ashley. I backed it all up in 3 different locations. Then I called Diane. "I'm ready," I told her. "Ready for what?" she asked. "To remind everyone who really built Wellington Pharmaceuticals." 2 days later, Christopher casually mentioned he was attending the Pharmaceutical Excellence Awards gala. "Are you coming?" I asked, knowing full well he'd say no. "I don't think so, babe. You're so close to finishing the Phase 3 documentation. Stay home and focus. This event is just a bunch of boring speeches anyway." He kissed my forehead like I was a child being left with a babysitter. "Don't wait up, these things run late." What Christopher didn't know was that I'd already called Harold, who was on the event committee. "Is Christopher nominated for something?" I asked. Harold's silence told me everything. "Brianna," he finally said, "he's receiving the Innovator of the Year award for the cancer treatment breakthrough." My breakthrough. My years of research, my sleepless nights and failed experiments and eventual success, and he was going to accept an award for it while I sat at home. The gala was black tie, invitation only, held at the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown. I called in a favor with Harold to get my name added to the guest list under my full legal name, Dr. Brianna Clark Wellington. I bought a new dress, a stunning gold gown that cost more than my first car. I styled my locks into an elegant updo. I printed out copies of my patents, my marriage certificate, and my original business registration documents. I loaded everything onto a USB drive, and I called Diane to be on standby. The night of the gala, I arrived an hour after it started. The ballroom was filled with pharmaceutical executives, investors, and medical professionals. Everyone was in their finest, networking and sipping champagne. I walked through those doors like I owned the place, because technically I did own a significant piece of what they were all celebrating. At first, no one recognized me. Why would they? Christopher had spent 2 years erasing me from the public narrative. I made my way through the crowd, politely declining champagne offers, until I saw them, Christopher and Ashley, holding court near the front of the room. She was in a red dress that probably cost $10,000. His hand was on her lower back, possessive and proud. People kept coming up to them, congratulating them, calling them the power couple of pharmaceuticals. And she accepted it all with this gracious smile, like she'd earned it. I positioned myself near the back, behind a pillar where I could watch without being seen. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. I'd spent 3 months planning this moment. I wasn't going to mess it up by acting on emotion. The lights dimmed. The award ceremony began. There were speeches about innovation and breakthrough treatments. They showed a video about Wellington Pharmaceuticals' cancer drug, my drug, and how it was going to save countless lives. They showed footage of our lab, my research, my years of work. But every voiceover credit went to Wellington Pharmaceuticals, or the Wellington team. My name appeared once, in small text, as lead research scientist. Like I was just another employee. Then came the moment. "And now," the host announced, "we're honored to present the Innovator of the Year Award to Christopher Wellington, CEO of Wellington Pharmaceuticals, for his groundbreaking work in targeted cancer therapy." The room erupted in applause. Christopher stood, buttoned his jacket, and helped Ashley to her feet. They walked to the stage together, hand in hand, like they were accepting an Oscar. Christopher gave a speech. He talked about vision and dedication and the long road to innovation. He thanked his incredible team and his amazing support system. Then Ashley took the microphone. "I just want to say," she gushed, "that watching my husband pour his heart into this research has been the greatest privilege of my life. He's not just changing medicine, he's changing the world." The room gave them a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. People were crying. And I just stood there, watching my husband and his mistress accept credit for my life's work. That's when I started walking. I didn't run. I didn't shout. I just walked down the center aisle in my gold dress, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The applause started to fade as people noticed me. Heads turned. Whispers started. I walked straight up to the stage stairs and climbed them. Christopher's face went pale. Ashley looked confused. I took the microphone from her hand. "Excuse me," I said politely. Then I turned to face the audience. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Brianna Clark Wellington. I'm the founder and chief scientist of Wellington Pharmaceuticals. I'm also Christopher's wife." I held up my marriage certificate. "The legal one." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I developed the cancer treatment that's being honored tonight. Alone, in my lab, over 7 years. I hold the patents. I conducted the trials. I wrote every research paper. Me. I gestured to the screen behind me. "That video you just watched? That's my work. Those innovations? Mine. This award? It has my name written all over it. Literally." I pulled out the USB drive and handed it to the technical crew. "If you don't mind, I'd like to show everyone something." Within seconds, my patents appeared on the screen. Then the original business registration, showing me as the founder. Then photos of Christopher and Ashley at various events, with captions calling her Mrs. Wellington. Then, and this was my favorite part, I played an audio recording. Christopher's voice filled the ballroom. "She's so focused on the science, she has no idea what's happening. By the time she figures it out, I'll have full control. The investors love Ashley. She's the face people want to see, not some lab rat who can't work a room." Christopher lunged for the microphone, but hotel security had already moved in. Diane had called them ahead of time, explaining the situation. "Brianna, let's talk about this privately," Christopher pleaded. His voice cracked. Ashley had already fled the stage, stumbling in her heels. "No," I said firmly. "We're going to talk about this right here, in front of everyone you lied to. You've spent 2 years telling people I was too busy to attend events, too focused to be bothered with the business side. But the truth is, you were erasing me, replacing me, planning to steal my work and leave me with nothing." I turned to the audience, to the board members I recognized in the front row. "Did any of you know Christopher wasn't the scientist behind our drug? Did any of you know he has 0 research credentials? Did any of you know he's been committing fraud by claiming credit for work he didn't do?" The room erupted. Board members were on their phones. Investors were demanding explanations. The event organizers were scrambling. and Christopher just stood there, his face red, his perfect image shattered. "You're going to regret this," he hissed at me. I smiled. "No, baby, you're going to regret underestimating me." I took the award from the podium. "This belongs to me," I said. Then I addressed the room one final time. "Wellington Pharmaceuticals will continue its work under my leadership. Anyone who wants to discuss the company's future can contact my attorney, Diane Richardson. Her information is on the screen. As for this evening, I apologize for the disruption, but I will not apologize for standing up for myself. Thank you." I walked off that stage with my head high. Behind me, I could hear Christopher arguing with security, Ashley crying somewhere in the crowd, and the rumble of hundreds of shocked conversations. By the time I reached my car, my phone was exploding with messages. Board members demanding an emergency meeting, investors apologizing for being deceived, media outlets asking for interviews. The fallout was swift and brutal. The board voted unanimously to remove Christopher as CEO. An investigation revealed he'd been inflating his credentials for years. The prenup I'd insisted on before we got married held up perfectly in court. Because all the intellectual property was solely in my name, Christopher had no legal claim to any of it. The divorce was finalized in 6 months. I kept 85% of the company. He got nothing but legal bills and a destroyed reputation. Ashley disappeared from the pharmaceutical scene completely. Last I heard, she moved to California and deleted all her social media. Christopher tried to start a consulting firm, but no one in the industry would work with him. Turns out, when you build your career on lies and stolen valor, people don't trust you. As for me, Wellington Pharmaceuticals' value doubled once I became the public face of the company. Investors loved the real story, the black woman scientist who built an empire from her garage. I hired more women, especially women of color, into leadership positions. Our drug got FDA approval 8 months after the gala. We've treated over 50,000 cancer patients so far, and every single one of them knows my name. I won't lie and say it was easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, mourning the marriage I thought I had. There were moments I doubted myself, wondering if I'd overreacted, if I should have handled it quietly. But then I'd remember that standing ovation they gave him for my work. I'd remember Ashley's smug smile as she thanked her husband for his dedication, and I'd remember my grandmother's words, "Baby girl, love is beautiful, but paperwork is forever." The truth is, they didn't just try to steal my work. They tried to steal my identity, my legacy, my future. And if I had stayed silent, if I had signed those papers, if I had let them continue their charade, I would have lost everything I'd spent my life building. Sometimes being quiet isn't being strong. Sometimes speaking up, even when your voice shakes, even when you're standing alone, is the most powerful thing you can do. That night at the gala, I didn't just take back an award, I took back my life. I took back my story. I took back my power. And I showed an entire industry that you can't erase a black woman who knows her worth and has the receipts to prove it. So that's how I went from invisible to unforgettable in one night. If this story taught you anything, let it be this. Always protect your work, always keep receipts, and never let anyone make you small. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Would you have confronted them sooner or played the long game like I did? And if this story gave you chills, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because I've got more stories that'll make your jaw drop. Remember, they can try to write you out of the story, but when you've got the receipts, baby, you write the ending. I'm out.